Pick it up, yeah.
New York. Human Torch was denied a bank loan. Arsonist said, Army should feed. What? An entire wheel of cheese?
I'm not even mad.
Rather impressed. We're hot, right? I love
Are you
scotch.
on right now?
Scotchy scotch.
Oh, you really did turn it on. Awesome.
Well, you caught me singing Dumb and Dumber last time, so.
So, have you watched any of the episodes, like our past ones?
Correct.
Okay, so we had one where we lost power completely.
Interesting.
It was it was like 110 degrees, and we decided to do a podcast in here where there's no air.
That's smart. There's a door there that rolls up.
Yeah.
Ventilation and whatnot.
Well, my producer tells me there's too much noise, and guy's kind of a dick.
Some ambient.
Right. So
ambient noise.
yeah, so we're partway through. Boom, full blackout. So Mike's like, "Hey, I've got these batteries."
Sounds like my Fridays.
Yeah. Full batteries. Here, he's got these batteries, so he does it. I look over. We got like a ton of shadow. So Rachel's doing like puppet show.
Nice.
I mean, saving the show, right?
I mean, why don't we just edit that out, though?
But
Can we cut?
Can we look this way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
This
right.
guy.
Well,
Are you ready? All right, guys. Darrell Lutz from castironworkouts.com. Today is Saturday the 19th. I got Rachel and Mikey with me like normal. And I've also got my best friend Jared with me
hey,
today.
guy. Good to see you,
buddy.
guy.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk to my friend Jared, and I'm going to let him introduce himself here in just a second. Jared works for the San Francisco 49ers. He and I have been friends for a long time. We coached together when I first got into running a gym and doing the gym thing kind of on my own and not working for Globo Gyms. Jared and I kind of started together, and that was about 17 years ago. So anyways, Jared, who are you? What do you do?
Me. You just summed it all up.
All right, we're done.
Basically, everything Darrell is, he owes to me, is what he's trying to say. 17 years ago, I launched his career into what you see before. No, I'm just kidding. So I'm Jared Muela. I'm the director of 49ers Prep and fan engagement for the 49ers. So I've been there. This will be my 12th season. 49ers Prep basically runs all the youth fitness and character development initiatives for the team. We also do a lot with fan engagement is under my title. So we call them displaced fans. So fans who don't necessarily come to the game day experience, that's a separate department. But for us, it's, the folks across the country who are Niner fans who we want to interact with, and we have programs and things for them throughout the year. So it's been, kind of a journey from that. We started out in community relations where we really got the guys out in the community on Mondays every week. And then from there, the youth sports movement and kind of the focus on health and safety, especially in football, started to grow. So we spun out into our own department because the need was there. So now we have a team of 6 that I work with that goes out in the community. And we do camps for, kids when we're not in COVID. We do a lot of stuff with high school coaches, high school kids. We put on the games at Levi Stadium. We have a high school football series where teams come out and play. So it really runs the gamut. Anything, if I have to wrap it all up, I say it's anything sub-professional level football is kind of comes across our desk, and we do that. So it's been a good ride.
When you first started, I mean, I kind of know the story, but I'm going to ask some questions. I know people are going to want to know this stuff about you and like what you do. And when you first started with the Niners, how did you get in? What was your title? What did you do? And kind of how did you progress to get to where you are now?
And it's funny, working in sports, there's not a lot of jobs. So I get that question a lot, right? Because there's a lot of folks who are sports management, they have master's degrees and they're trying to get in and they're asking what the path forward is. And there's not one, but for me, it was, I was coaching high school football at the time, and an old teammate of mine was actually working for the team. And through the camps that they did, they hired high school coaches to run these specific camps. So they'd come in for a 2 or 3 day stint. So I really got my foot in the door that way and loved it. And I think once I did, I understood that there was actually like jobs and a career that could be had inside pro sports, because my focus was, at the time, I was coaching high school football. I went back to school to finish my degree in physical education, wanted to be a PE teacher and high school football coach and just keep down that path. And then I saw this really cool opportunity to kind of mesh my passions together, right? Just working with kids. I love the 49ers as a fan growing up my whole life. And then just having, a little bit more diverse opportunity to do some things. So once that happened, I got kind of in that coaching call list. And then the guy who had the job before me transitioned out, and I really applied for it like everybody else. It's really competitive. There's 500 folks that usually end up, applying for any job that we post. But I was on site the whole time. I was running these camps. I knew people, so I definitely had a leg up. But it was a 6-month process. I mean, it was really, really labor intensive and a long deal. But that's how I got in. Again, at that point, I was the community relations / youth football coordinator, because we were still kind of that department there. So that's how I got in. I mean, to where I'm at now. So now I'm the director, but kind of like I talked about, we spun out from community relations probably 7 years ago because the focus had grown and there was a need for it. So with the blessing of our ownership and executive leadership team, they really invested in us. It's been a focus of our organization the whole time. And they've just kind of stimulated growth. So wherever the need is, we identify it and we talk to them. And if there's growth that needs to go along with addressing it, they support it. So that's kind of how we're at.
Cool. So I know, like when you were doing the camps, I used to do the camps with Jared, and they were a ton of fun, right? And we, so the camps where you want to explain.
Yeah.
Camps? Go ahead.
So I believe the question was, what was the camps?
Yeah, well, I don't even know, when you're saying the camps, is it just like the level of, I know you said like high school kids, like what are you doing?
No, that's a great question. Sorry. So the first one we did was a 3-day youth football camp, which was 7 to 14-year-olds. And it was a experience camp is what we call it. So if you'd never played football, if you played a little football, you come out, it was hosted at the 49ers training facility. So we were on property. We had a bunch of like the current players pop in and help coach. So what we do with that one, we still run it today, is it's every player plays every position, right? So the thought being for us is that once you get into like high school, middle school, if you're playing football, it's very specialized, right? Football specializes more than any other sport because every position's so different. So what happens if you're 12 years old and tall and, thick, you're going to be a lineman, right? Well, that kid may have the best hands on the team. He may be the best receiver, and he may stop growing too. So having them get a chance to kind of play every position, they find out where their strengths are. They find out what they like. Because if a kid is built like a lineman but doesn't want to play lineman, like, is that really what you should be doing with them? No, right? If they want to play something else, let them play what they love, because, again, it's a game. It's for fun, right? So this gives everyone a chance that they won't get when they get into, like, organized football. So that was kind of the first camp we did. Everything, when I say camps, like, when we do them, most of them, our wheelhouse is 7 to 14. So when we go into schools, we'll run non-contact football camps for elementary schools. The genesis for that was because in California, as we all know, physical education instructors were pulled back from a funding perspective. So the onus was put on the classroom teacher to get there 100 minutes every 2 weeks. So we wanted this program to go in and supplement and give the teachers an opportunity to take a step back, take a breath, because they're teaching classroom too, and then also give them new ideas for stuff to do with their kids. So
awesome. Sorry to interrupt.
No. Great question. That's a great question.
Yeah.
It's good. And that's a cool part too. Like, and I'll let you talk in detail about some of this stuff, but like Jared was saying, like they're doing stuff to, his job helps the community so much, right? And it's I see it from, doing the camps, and you're working with, like Jared said, the 7 to 14-year-olds. And it was cool for me, being a high school coach for, 14 years, 13, 14 years, and coach most of them with Jared. We were coaching just those kids. And by that point, it was organized football, and we were coaching varsity football. And so you're getting kids that, they're kind of set in their position, right? When you take that step back and you get to see these kids get an opportunity to come out and, maybe you have a taller kid, a thicker kid, whatever, who, that's probably going to be a D tackle, or he's going to be an offensive lineman, or whatever it is. And what was cool for me was a lot of times I was working with quarterbacks, is I had kids come out and they're like, I've never got to do this before, and I get to learn how to take a snap, and I get to learn how to take a 3 steps. It's super cool. And then to touch on that, like what you were saying, like about helping the teachers, right? And we're taking a load off of them. I know, like for Tara, like my wife, she is a elementary school teacher. So something cool that I know you guys were doing prior to COVID was giving the stadium tours and bringing kids out from different areas, different communities to tour the stadium, see kind of the 49ers history, see what the stadium's all about. And I don't know. I just thought that was something super cool where you talk about like helping your community, because let's be real, there's not a whole lot of help for teachers out there, right?
Totally. And that program is kind of like ours. It grew, right? So we run a STEAM education program. So STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, which we transitioned to from STEM. Everybody says STEM. Our STEAM program came about with the stadium, but they have, I want to say it's over 30,000 kids come through that program, and they tour this, not only tour the stadium, but they go through, we have 2 classrooms on site that are fully integrated with high-end technology, and they learn about really the science of football, because that's what we do. But they talk about forces, affecting a football during a throw. It's rotation, it's gravity, it's wind resistance, it's drag, it's all those
Dave
things.
Jenkins.
Dave Jenkins stuff. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Dave Jenkins loves that stuff. So,
God, I hope he sees this.
but that's another one. That's another one, right? It's like the organization and like the leadership team doubles down on the youth, right? We're not afraid to lean into stuff that other teams aren't doing, because it's kind of the right thing to do and what our kind of energy is all about. So that is a parallel program to mine, the STEAM education program. So they're like us during this time, ultra pivot with shelter in place and COVID. Everything's digital, but we're still able to reach in both programs, roughly the same amount of kids as we did before, which is great. So
that's cool. That's cool. So during our shelter in place, COVID, and I know you guys have transitioned some, and you and I have talked a little bit about it. Like, what are some of the things that you guys are doing to, get community involvement still? Like, what are some of the big things you guys are doing now, or working on, or progressing towards, while all this stuff is kind of going on?
Yeah. So, I mean, traditionally we'll have one-to-one contact with over like 35,000 kids through our program. So that's through the camps where we're physically running things, but obviously we can't do it now. So the first thing we did was just kind of understand what our capabilities were going to be, right? What can we do? This is the first kind of phase of COVID, right? And then after that, it was, what's the need, right? What's happening? And because we were in that March kind of leading into summer, the school piece had fallen off. So how do we pivot on our summer program? So we talked to our boys and girls clubs, the YMCAs, the Parks and Rec departments, those folks, to really help craft kind of what we do. And ultimately where we landed is we've shifted everything into digital, but we still have that focus on the classroom teacher, and also the digital learning environment is tough, right? So I think even physical education teachers are in a tough spot to get programming out to kids, because they have to be, and they have so many kids, right? They're trying to lead live lessons and do all these other things. Where we come in is we developed our program, our curriculum, basically around California fitness standards that we're going to be rolling out in the next couple of weeks or so that teachers can have programmable information that they can link back to for the kids, right? I want you to go through this upper body circuit through 49ers prep. I want you to go through the lower body circuit. We have a flag football unit that we can teach in middle school and high school if that's kind of part of their curriculum. So that's really where we ended up going. I mean, we, like everybody else, we lean into digital. It's tough. We've all become, amateur producers on our iPhones. I'd shoot a digital coaching series where I interview like alumni. So we had Alex Boone on the first time. I just got done with Aaron Ingram from USA Football. I talked to Roman Oben, who's the vice president of youth and high school football at the NFL level. Ian Williams, we just put up last month, so former nose tackle and then local Bay Area broadcaster. And then we have what's coming up, and be cool, is I have Joe Staley on my next one.
Yeah,
so it's in the can. We haven't produced it, but the secret is, it's so funny because like they're who you think they are. So Joe the night before is like, hey, is it cool if Adam Snyder comes on with me? He's staying over at my house, like 10-year-old sleepovers. He's like, can I bring my buddy? Like, my buddy's here. Is that okay? Can he come on? I'm like, yeah. I mean, he was like a 12-year NFL veteran, part of our NFC Championship team. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, no, that's the no. So, but watching those two kind of interact, but that's kind of what we're trying to do, is figure out how do we keep, content going, stuff that's of interest. And the next one, or the last one I'll talk about, is the digital piece has given us such an opportunity that we never knew before, right? So what we just launched on the 17th was our whole virtual training camp that we developed for the Boys and Girls Club around flag football into Spanish. We translated it into Spanish, and we relaunched it with NFL Mexico. So NFL Mexico has a huge flag football program. It's called Tochito, which is basically touch. And we've had a relationship with them, but we just work in, it seems easy to translate stuff in English into Spanish, you would think, right? But the re-editing, it took a huge team to get this rolled out, but we just launched it last week. We're super excited. There's over 100,000 kids in that program. Now, they have the same challenges, digital divide, as we have here, but we're hoping that at least, they'll have access to it like they haven't had before. And also, the part that I think people don't realize is there's a huge Spanish-speaking population just in the country, in America, right? So now we have that dual piece for schools who have heavy Hispanic populations or Hispanic speaking student body. So I'm really excited about that. That's kind of cool. Like it took a time like this for us to really identify that and figure out we could spend time, energy, and effort on it. But now it's coming alive, so it's pretty neat.
So, something like, you're talking about all this cool stuff that you guys are doing, and I know prior to COVID and lockdown, you guys have, to me, because, you're one of my best friends, and I talked to you about
I think I was your best friend in the beginning. The best friend, not one of your best friends. I'm just clarifying, right?
Hey.
We can run that back.
Listen.
My best friend, Jared, not one of my best friends, Jared.
Run the clip.
That's fine. Thanks for having me.
Well, there's times where I don't even get a response to a text anymore, and I get a little.
That's these big thumbs.
I get a little hurt.
Can't text.
Okay. I voice text, Jared. Okay, that works.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
that
hilarious.
Works.
Yeah.
You hear that? You hear this? Excuses over here.
Yeah.
So, prior to everything, the lockdown, even now, you guys are. It seems like you guys are always ahead of the game with what the rest of, and I'm not knocking any other NFL teams and what they're doing, to reach out to the community, and because I think all of them are trying their best to help as many people as possible, which is awesome.
The fact.
But it always seems like you guys are a step above and always, I don't know, just doing more, right? And progressing more. Is that something that, and I don't know, chain of command in the San Francisco 49ers and who you were reporting to or whatever, but
Sure.
Is that something that you are kind of given a nice loose leash to do as much as possible? Is it something that they go, all right, Jared, run with this? Is it something where, you and your team are able to sit down and, put together a lot of ideas, or are they pushing you a certain direction?
Sure. No, and I think each one of those plays out in different situations, right? But none of it happens. So let's go back. The York family, who owns the team, right? Their emphasis has always been on youth, right? In different aspects. It's, creating access, promoting education, anything that's going to help and service the next generation is kind of the overarching goal. Now, there's others, but I know that that's a real focal point for them. So everything really starts at the top. And it's like that for most of the NFL teams that I've seen. And to your point, everybody is doing a really great job now and doing the best they can. For us, we've had the luxury of an ownership group and an executive leadership team who gets football and understands the importance of being a great community partner. So with that, we get, yes, me and my team can ideate something, we can run with it, right? We have that type of latitude and ability. We do get stuff from leadership that says, hey, I want to get into this, or what are we doing to service this population or do this topic? And then we'll go back, create a program, and present it. The other one we have to do when we do things larger is it's a savvy business-minded organization. So for me, the biggest learning curve was to really put my business hat on and understand, how to present, justify, and then enact a plan, right? So it's going to be, and it's not dollars and cents, really. It's not. I mean, the expense is always a piece, but it's never revenue generating, right? So for us, we don't generate revenue. We're a team cost, right? So we're funded through the 49ers Foundation's fundraising, essentially, which has been the last couple of years. So when we have a plan, it's understanding, okay, here's what it's going to take for us to do it. Here's who we're going to reach. Here's how it scales. Here's what we think the impact and return is to the community. And then what do you think? And then we'll have ideas and we'll shape it from there. So it really kind of runs the gamut. But again, with the STEAM program, with what we do, we're much more robust teams than other organizations because our leadership team focuses on that space. And they invest, right? Putting their money where their mouth is pretty cool. So we lucked out. We lucked out in that respect.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I know just from, what I've seen and heard from you, and then being involved, for 6-7 years doing the 3-day camp and doing some off-site camp stuff with you, like it just seems like there's a ton of support, which is awesome to see, right? It's cool to see that you have a huge organization like San Francisco 49ers that is going above and beyond to help the community in as many ways as possible. So I don't know. I just think it's pretty cool.
No, appreciate that. I mean, it runs a gamut. I could talk on and on about programs outside of mine that kind of achieve those same goals, right? The STEAM Leadership Institute. We have a STEAM Education Center on 2 different campuses where kids get focused after-school education. We just graduated our first class from its inception like 6 years ago. The program's community relations runs out in the community, getting folks out. We really are a community-focused organization, which is great. because I work in community programs. So it works out. I mean, it's good intrinsically, but it's also good to be in an organization at that time.
Right.
So how does it kind of work though? Sorry if I'm not understanding it. So I know you work with the schools, and then you worked with like the boys and girls clubs, things like that. So is this something where like kids can just randomly go sign up? Does it have to be through? So like, how do more kids learn about it, and where do they need to be to do it?
Yeah, no, great question. Both. So we have programs that are sign up based. We had like the 3-day camp Darrell and I talked about. We have a high school skills camp. We have things that kids can register for more information. Then we reach out to their teacher, like to bring a camp to their school. We have a bunch of different kind of entry points for people into our programming. Primarily, the biggest ones are out in the community through our coordination with like the teachers and educators. That's how we really get out. And then I think for us, everything is housed on our website. So if you really wanted to get a snapshot of like all our programs, 49ers.com/prep, and you can see all the things that we do. So we run over in an annual year, we're 45 unique programs. So that's not events. These are actual programs that have multiple events underneath them. So it's pretty dynamic, right? So one of the ones we have coming up is a mentorship academy, which we created like 6 years ago, where we bring in high school football seniors. They come in, we talk about social media responsibility, healthy relationships, everything that I think, a high school 17-year-old needs to hear about.
Yeah.
And then we take them in and they meet with our rookie class, right? To understand that we work with our player engagement department because our rookies coming in the NFL are trying to find mentors, right? They're looking to the older guys, and they forget that they are that person for somebody else. Those high school kids are looking up to those rookies. So they go through that. We have some fun. They create a bond, hopefully, and then the high school kids go back out, and they're tasked with going into their community and putting on either a camp like we ran, a mentorship academy, a non-contact football camp, or giving what we call a commitment through courage award that to a youth football player. So they would announce it at their banquet and be like, the coach nominates, says, little Darrell, we're giving him the Courage Through Character Award, this year. He's really come a long way, right? And the high school kid would present it to them. So what we're trying to do is create the relationship between the youth football and the high school and the pros. And then once they do that, they come back, they graduate. They come to a practice, we honor them on the field, but that's kind of our high school base. And again, all those programs work through relationships with high school coaches, teams. We just kind of keep that network. We try to grow.
Well, and that was something too that was super cool. And I think it was your first year or second. I think I did it twice. You had a coaches clinic at the facility, and I came and spoke at it. Mm-hmm. Being a high school head coach, Jared goes, "Hey man, would you want to come in and speak? I'm gonna, you speak offense, speak defense." And I think I did one year, one the other, and I think I talked like option offense. And anyways, what was cool was being a high school coach and going in and talking to youth coaches, because you were a high school coach with me, and like I said, we coached together for years, and we would always talk about the disconnect between high school and youth coaches, and like what the youth coaches were doing, how they could improve to help us, mm-hmm. right? And having that tie-in, right, where you can connect those two communities that are all it's going to do is benefit these kids. Mm-hmm. That's amazing, right? And that was one of the things. That's where I met Rachel's brother-in-law, which I found out later. Foz, like at one of the. I still remember. I'm presenting on option offense, and there's a humongous Samoan dude who's wearing a Tuiasosopo jersey.
Is that our clinic?
Yes. And of course it was,
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Just making network.
Yeah, and it was, and I find out later on, like, it was him, but and he hung out and talked after, and he goes, well, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And what would you do at this, with the youth kids? And I said, well, look, man, for me at the high school level, what we always saw was youth coaches, there was no... the youth coaches always wanted to be, Kyle Shanahan or whoever. And it's like, listen, slow down, mm-hmm. time out, take a step back. Let's teach the kids some basics. And, and that way, when they do come to us, we can just build from that.
Yeah.
And it just to have that tie-in from one level to the next was super awesome.
No, it's good to hear that actually plays out, because it's very intentional, right? And I think we talk about the youth football dynamic in the high school and all the different levels, right? And this from when we coach, right? The goal of every level of football, besides the pros, and maybe college, right, is retention, right? It's
100%.
Kids need to be having fun. They need to be progressing. Kids have fun when they feel like they're progressing, and that keeps them involved and active in the game, right? So what happens is a lot of times at the youth level, coaches with the best of intentions and high football IQs come into a kid who's never put on a helmet and try to just download everything that they've ever learned. And it frustrates the kid because they're not having success, right?
Well, you think about, okay, so when you and I were coaching together, how many times were we coaching, right? And we're in coach's office and we're getting gear out for the kids to pull out to the field. And we look and we see these kids walking around campus. We're like, why is that kid not playing football?
Right.
I mean, just like a grown man looking, man, I'm going, okay, how do we get you on the football field? And I would end up having a conversation with the kid, like, hey, how come? Well, I played football when I was younger. I just didn't like it.
Didn't like it.
I don't want to play it anymore. Yeah. Well, what are you doing now? Nothing. Well, come on, man, put down the joystick, come out.
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
And most of the time it was like no, because they had that. I don't want to say a bad experience, but a bad experience.
Well, and the bad experience doesn't have to be like coach was screaming at me or beating on me, but the bad experience is like I don't feel like I'm getting better. I don't feel like I'm having success, right? It doesn't even have to be wins and losses. Like kids, if you talk, I'm on the board for Positive Coaching Alliance as well, and they talk a lot about the mindset of a young person and the reasons why they play. And it's wins and losses is so far down the list, and everybody wants to think it's much, much higher from a coach or a parent, right? Parents want wins for the most part, right? Coaches want wins.
Yeah.
Kids don't care.
Yeah.
Not to the same degree their parents do. They want to go out. They want to feel like they're getting better, right? They want to have success. They want to be encouraged. They want to hang out with their friends. So let's take care of that piece first. And guess what happens? You start winning.
Well, and and on that, and you'll probably remember this, and it probably wasn't one of my finer moments as a coach, but it was my first year as a varsity head coach, second game in the season, and we got one pasted on us. It was 60-something to 6. It was a rough.
Your fault.
It was it was a rough go, right? And I remember walking in the locker room after the game, and now the class that we coached, these kids, like you said, this is the varsity level. We had 26 seniors, I believe, on this team. Prior to that year, I think we had 2 of them that had played varsity football. So they were young, like as a football mentality, a football experience standpoint. Those kids just wanted to have fun, right? They weren't as, I guess, intense as some of the other classes that we've coached over the years. And I walk in the locker room, and we just got one pasted on us. I'm pissed, right? You know me pretty well. Like I don't react well to losing, right?
Sure.
Like as an athlete,
Sure.
as a coach. I walk in the locker room, I'm expecting to see heads hanging like, oh man, I'm disappointed in what's going on. Our kids are eating cupcakes.
Oh my God.
Chilling, hanging out,
I'm gonna
eating
go this
cupcakes, and there's laughing and joking. And
They were high protein cupcakes.
Oh, bro, I came unglued. I'm
Sorry,
like,
good.
what is happening? I'm like, everybody get your stuff. I don't, we're not talking. Like, let's get a break, get out of here, because I can't handle this right now. But like Jared was saying, it's, those kids, they weren't looking for wins and losses. You know what I mean? And it's different. And I know when all kids are different, and you'll have different classes and different kids come through. But a lot of that too, those kids, like I said, they didn't have the football experience to that point, right? They hadn't built up, time under tension, right? Where they hadn't been doing it for a long time. So to them, I think the longer you do something too, you take more pride in what you're doing.
Totally agree.
Right. So I think those kids, that group of kids in particular, just didn't have that. Right. So it was new. So anyways, man, I know, it's different for all kids that you're coaching. And like you said, you see that at the youth level where it's impressed upon them early, where it's wins or losses, whatever. And I think that turns a lot of kids off.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right.
So, I've been talking a lot, asking you some questions, and I know Rachel had a few questions for you. So, Rachel, what were you going to ask my friend Jared here?
Well, Jared, no. So we were just, talking about, like, when we were off here, programs for girls.
Yeah.
Because I know it just seems, and I hate saying this, that, it's football. It just is geared toward boys. But, you guys are doing so much education. What's available for the girls in that aspect?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so something that we try to address intentionally and then kind of holistically. So all our programs are co-ed. We have actually, I take that back. We only have one gender-specific program, and it's only for girls. Everything else is co-ed. So the camps that we talk about, we actually trend just along kind of the school line. So we'll have like 55% female. And then we'll have like,
You straight locked them up.
the rest of it will be boys. So we have a majority of our participants are girls. So that's a great aspect. The other things that we do is We have what we call it Think Gold Conference. So it started actually the year before I came on. So it's like in its 13th year now, but it's for high school female athletes only. And it's a full day conference that we host on site. We get upwards of like 50 to 60 high school female athletes, and they come in and really get the facility and the organization all to themselves. So the reason we keep it females only is because some of the high school things that we do, to your point, trend male only, right? So we had to be very intentional about that. But we give them basically full access and programming to the entire organization. So they'll come in. The first thing they do is we warm them up. They're in athletic gear. They're going through a day. Everything's physical. They work with our speed and agility and conditioning coach, our head strength coach, and his team put them through a full workout like they do the 49ers players, right? They sit down. They spend an hour plus or minus with the team nutritionist, talking about ways to fuel your body, your different changing needs, your energy sources, all of that stuff. They spend an hour with our PT group, our athletic trainers, go into the training room. They talk to them. A lot of it's career path questions. A lot of it's, stuff specific to their sport. So they get access to, in my own opinion, the best in the country, right? In working in this, and get to ask any kind of questions they want in a setting where they're with their peers, right? Like-minded individuals, even though they're not all from the same school, they're all having a similar journey, right? Playing sports in high school is tough, boy or girl. There's different demands put on a high school athlete than there is a student who doesn't play sports. But then also, and this has been told to me by the women I work with, but it's also different being a female and being an athlete. There's a different set of stressors and circumstances that they have to go to. So we just, like anything else, we can bring people together who are going through the same path and having the same journey. There's a comfort level there where you can ask real open, honest questions and not feel embarrassed or feel those types of things. So that's one that we really love. And then in our flag football program that we launched, it's also co-ed, right? So we launched a free flag football program 2 years ago with Boys and Girls Clubs, police activity leagues, YMCAs, Parks and Rec. We intentionally didn't make a male-female division or male-female rules, right? So some flag leagues will have, okay, it's going to be co-ed, and you have to have 2 girls on the field at all time, right? We didn't want to create that dynamic where there was some sort of necessity to feel like you had to play a girl or this amount of girls, because then there's like a distance that gets created between the boys and the girls. So what we did is we just kind of launched it as co-ed and let it happen organically. And what we saw was, first of all, the girls excel at flag football way faster than the boys. Part of that's a development thing. Part of it is the sports they participate in translate a little bit better.
I saw it with Dalton last year when he was doing
yeah.
The girls, like every girl that played like in his little league, like within his division, were studs.
Right.
Absolute studs.
And the other thing, it takes I would say in those settings a lot of times, and I mean, you tell me, right? It takes a confident athlete to step into what would traditionally be viewed as a male sport, right? So you're also getting athletes who play and are confident and want to excel and are comfortable in that setting. So as the program kind of developed, we said, look, if there needs to be these things put in place, we'll wait a year or two if we're finding that the girls aren't getting playing time. And what happened was kind of the opposite. The girls were like, we have so many girls, like we almost need a girl league. Like we want to develop girls teams. That way we can have that same type of dynamic. And it's really kind of been where we've been proud to see that happen, right? And that's not our doing. It's the coaches and the commissioners who run those leagues to develop that. But it's very explicit kind of in our mandate is, everybody's going to play. Doesn't matter boy or girl. Our league's non-competitive too. We pulled out the point system and the wins losses. And I'm not everybody gets a trophy type of person, but I'm also not every sport has to be a tournament or a championship. Sport is intrinsically good. Playing a sport is good for your body. It's good for your mind. It's good for your community. It's good for all those things. So we peeled that out because, like we talked about with football, and this is why your cupcake game blew your mind, is because the competitive aspect, right, makes coaches act outside themselves, right? If I know that I'm going to win or I have to beat this kid, I'm not putting Timmy in. Timmy, you dropped one earlier. What are we doing for Timmy? Nothing. We're making him not want to play football and feeding in the same problem
sure.
we talked about.
Time and place
right?
with it too, right? And it depends on what level you're at. And that's where, like you said, you give those kids the chances to excel when they're younger, right? And then when they get to that higher level, go ahead.
No,
I see you're ready.
No, you're right. But I mean, this is good because you brought up Dalton, right? He is right in the wheelhouse for that. Now, if you looked at me and told me that there was a shortage of competitive flag football leagues for Dalton to participate in because he wanted to play competitive, you'd be lying. Everything else is competitive out there.
Right.
The gap in programming was the kid who's not sure they want to play, hasn't played. Maybe they haven't started really taking interest in sports until they're 10, 11, 12, which in today's world, in today's landscape, kids are specialized by 11.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so to jump out on a football field in a top flight tier 1 flag football team, that's not an option for them, right? They're not going to either play, it's intimidating, or they're not going to make the team and get cut, which is now, what have we done to that kid? So we've wanted to fill the gap for the in-between. Kids who aren't sure, haven't played. It's also free. You know, it's $175 minimum get-in price for any sort of league, right? Which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but it is a barrier, right? So those leagues they're businesses and they have value. Some kids need competitive. Some kids need these other things. Some kids can't afford that. This is now an opportunity for it to be 100% free, 100% subsidized by the team. You get everything and more that you get in a competitive league. You get the t-shirt, the jersey, the flag belt, the whistles. We provide everything. So that's the group we're really trying to work with. And that's where we're seeing like the value go back to the kids and the community, and everybody gets to play. And it's really kind of taking shape like we wanted it to, because we're explicit in the beginning. This is what our league's about. If you're going to keep score, this isn't your league. You can't host our league on our behalf if that's going to be what you're looking to get. And so nobody's, caught off guard. But yeah, that's something, that's a cool way that's taken shape. And we're seeing girls, football is for everybody. Football doesn't get played 11 on 11, full contact all the time, right? That's been the mindset of a lot of people. Like, I can't play football. I don't like contact. I don't have 21 other friends to go play a game with, right? Football is an implement, and as long as you have that, you're playing football. And that's kind of what we're trying to get to.
Well, and so since you, like you were saying, you almost have enough girls to make these all-girl leagues and stuff, and you're seeing them really excel. So what is the transition into like seeing that into high school? Like, are the numbers growing? Like, what is their options for, I don't want to sound ignorant, but I don't even know, are there options for girls to play into college? Like, I don't even know what the rules are at this point.
Yeah, so recently, as of like a month ago, NAIA has recognized flag football as a scholarship sport for girls.
That's
So
amazing.
That's now a scholarship-based
cool.
collegiate sport. So that's huge, right? The other opportunities there's an interest at the high school level to start flag football teams. So it would be, in high school, everything's separated by gender. There's boys, except a few, but there's girls basketball, there's boys basketball. Yeah. We're seeing the interest to have the parallel as the girls flag football league. So we're actually, that's one of the things we're working on is where do we as a team can we help in that process and that evolution, right? Because really the onus falls on the athletic director in the school district, because there's funding, there's field time, there's all the challenges every other sport has. But what we're trying to do is really take all the interest and roll it up so that there's facts and presentable information for them to take back to their districts. Like, hey, this is the fastest growing sport in youth sports right now. It's flag football, right? As kids are coming out of other sports, they're going into flag football. The natural progression, if the youth are doing, is we need to give them an option in high school. So we're trying to be a conduit for information so that we can help campaign for other folks to get that into high schools. But it's coming. High school female
cool.
flag football is on the way.
Well, flag football too. It's a good jumping off point, right? Like, when we were younger, even when we were coaching, you didn't have flag football. I mean, I think it was like when we were coaching high school football. Still, it was just kind of starting to take shape.
Coach, I was a fullback, all right?
Yeah,
flag football is
know,
not for me, son.
I know, but
there was no 3 yards was a win in flag football, and that's
it's one of those, like I said, it's a good entry point for a lot of kids. And I saw it this last year coaching Dalton's team. Like you said, your goal as a coach, or like for me, when I was coaching high school ball, my goal for the youth coaches was 100% it was retention.
Absolutely.
Because if those kids aren't coming back at the youth level, I'm not going to see them at the high school level. So, going into that with that mindset, coaching Dalton's team this past year, it was like, I could care less if we win or lose. Like, I'd tell the kids, my goal every game is to have every kid touch the ball and to play every position.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
Get them all
That's
get all over the field. Right? And it was cool. They had a ton of fun. And at the end of the year, okay, who's going to play again? All of them. Boom.
Did you give them cupcakes?
No cupcakes.
Okay, just checking.
No
Taking a
cupcakes.
cupcake check.
Totally bringing cupcakes. The end
You'll
of
see
your
a
party,
whole
I'm
nother
gonna be
side
there.
of Darrell here with the cupcakes.
Come on, man.
He gets mad at me all the time. He got mad at me for cantaloupe earlier. I told you about it.
Flag football. No, you're right. No,
So
right?
yeah, So, like I said, it's a good entry level thing, I think, for the kids if you have the right mindset with the coaches where they're out there trying to get them to come back and to do their thing. But I think for a lot of kids too that are a little bit timid when they first start playing football, throwing them in a helmet and shoulder pads and now putting them even 2 yards apart and having them run into somebody else scares the crap out of them.
Absolutely.
So I think that entry level of flag football it's huge. And at first, when I heard flag leagues were taking off, being a coach and I'm going, flag football, let's get these kids to play. And then I started honestly like sitting down and thinking about it. I'm like, if we can get them on the field, that could transition. If you get 10 of those kids on the field who weren't going to play football, and I can take 3 of them and develop them into a football player later on down the road, that's amazing. Instead of having 10 that weren't going to do it and just don't do it.
Right.
So I think that flag progression is huge, right? Whether it's boys, whether it's girls, whatever they're doing with it. I mean, I don't know. I think like you said, flag football, I think there's, seeing the amount of kids that are getting involved with it, it's huge.
Well, you said a good word too there. You're talking about like the progression. So organized football, full contact football is the only kind of nationally recognized sport that doesn't have a progression system for their younger levels, right? So think about baseball. It's the best example. When you're 5 years old, are you 90 feet apart with a kid trying to throw a pitch? No, you're playing what? T-ball, right? And there's 6 kids on the field. There's 3 coaches, right? The game is modified for those kids. Now, football, traditionally, you play at 6, you play 11 on 11, full contact football, right? So once you go, and you see baseball again, your next level, there's juniors, right? Smaller field, smaller bases, coach pitch. There's all these different thresholds that are catered towards the development of a kid, right? To lead them up to what you see in the major leagues or college or high school, right? Football hasn't had that, and it's getting that, right? The need has been identified, but that's where flag football really plays a role. And again, the goal of flag football doesn't need to be to convert kids into full contact football players. It's not. It's to give them a pathway through sport throughout their childhood, right? If football is what they excel at, if football is what they like, we want to give them opportunities throughout to be successful and continue down that path, right? So, you'll see now the model is there's hybrid, where there's helmets and shoulder pads, but it's flag, right? There's 8-man, there's smaller fields, there's rules around touch, and there's all these different things that they're trying to standardize to give that kind of pathway to 11. To your point, going out there, putting a helmet on, getting a pat on the back, and Jimmy, go do this technique. You're like, Jimmy, I'm only thinking about if I'm going to get hit or not, coach. Like, all that stuff you just told me, it's gone, right? I'm in preservation mode. Like, that's right. You're not really getting any better.
How many times did we see kids, whether we're coaching varsity, JV, whatever, and you see the freshman kids come in every year, right? And you've got, depending on the school you're at, depending on the area you're in, you get anywhere from 20 up to 60, 70 kids come out. And, that first week, they're running kids around, you're putting them through different drills and introducing them to football. And then all of a sudden, it's like, here's your helmet, shoulder pads, here's all your stuff. Yeah, and then all of a sudden, that 70 goes to 30.
Right.
And for a lot of the kids, it again, about the progression, right? They never had that progression. They never had that stepping stone of, of easing into okay, last week we did this. Oh, we got a game next week, so we're going to do kickoff coverage. Let's line up 40 yards apart. And so, huh? I've never put on a helmet before.
Correct. My butt pad's on the wrong side of my body.
How many times do we see that? Hey, how many times do we see that?
Yeah. Every season there's 4.
Hey, and here's Darrell's face when they walk by my office.
Yeah.
Hilarious, man. Like, come on. I'd help the kid and tell him it was wrong. But
I'm not even sure I didn't do that when I was a freshman, but it stands out to me because I never played football before high school.
Yeah, no, I could see you doing that.
Equipment distribution was literally just dumped in your locker.
I could see you doing it, but on purpose.
Correct.
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
Also
okay.
correct.
What were we talking about?
We're talking about
No idea.
tail pads. No, but we're even in the progression, we're talking about contact, taking the focus out, right, and being the mainstay. Even the progression in high school is crazy because when you and I played, I don't want to age ourselves here, but it was there was like you need 2 weeks of conditioning, then you get pads. Guess what you're doing on the first day of pads? Oklahoma's. You're doing eye openers. You're doing kickoff coverage, right? You're doing all these different drills. That's not even we got to go away from that. Right? Like we talked about kids wanting to have confidence and have success to build their skill set. Like we didn't spend time going through like tackling form, right? non-contact tackling form, doing things from non-contact to thud to controlled to full contact.
No, I mean, because you think back to like, okay, so we had a couple weeks of spring ball.
Yeah.
And you would do some form tackling in spring ball, and then 4 months later, here's pads, let's bang.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
It's caveman football. Here, pad, get ball. Like, oh, thanks, coach. You big, tackle him. Got it. Yep, for sure. Like, it's changed a bunch, and I think it's for the better, right? Because I remember those moments, right?
Yeah.
I won't say his name because I don't,
Yeah.
But my first coach,
Yep.
what position you play? I don't know where the ball goes. Like, I've never played football. He's like, all right, well, you're going to be a linebacker. I'm like, that sounds awesome. Great. So, and the first thing we did on contact day was goal line. We literally did goal line on the first day of practice, right? And we're doing inside run goal line. It's not even like nobody passed. So I'm standing there, play gets called, nothing happens. I'm not doing anything. I'm chopping my feet because if I look active, I'm doing something. And they score. He's like, you got to feel a gap. You got to get your nose in there. So coach grabs me by the back of my shoulder pads and my belt. He goes, run it again. And I'm like, what?
Okay.
But wait, I know where it's going now. He's like, I got you. As soon as that ball gets snapped. Now, mind you, I was a pretty decent-sized freshman. I mean, I went at 185 pounds, right? I was probably this tall, right? This cat grabbed me as soon as they called play, threw me like a Superman missile, right?
Yeah.
At the tailback, who was 120 pounds soaking wet, but had played. And I fought in this kid, right? And I think, I'm not sure really what happened, but I got up and they're like, that's football. Like, that's a linebacker. I'm like, you're going to be on the field throwing me by the pants every game? Like, that was terrifying. You know what I mean?
That's where Jared realized, I like football.
Yeah. I was like, oh, this was good what I did? Everybody clap. Yeah, I was like, great. I got thrown. Great. I'm a good projectile. So, but that, I think for a lot of kids, that experience, like for me, I was probably too dumb to realize that's not going to be a positive experience.
Right.
But for other kids, that'll turn away from the game, right? Think about the other kid. Think about the running back who just got a 175-pound linebacker thrown at him by a coach. Like, did he come back? I don't know.
Right.
Right. So it's good that we're getting away from all that. As fun as it was to talk about.
Yeah, and football itself, like on a contact level at the high school level. I mean, just, you and I were kind of talking about it off air here a couple minutes ago. It's just how the game itself has changed and how kids have so much stuff going on, and there's so much that we didn't think about, right? And part of it was like Jared and I played for an old school coach in high school who old school mentality, like 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And
1952, he took over for Bill Walsh, Washington High School. Like
59.
Yeah, 1959. What did I say?
Yeah.
1959.
Yeah.
1959, kids.
Yeah, no, and it was just a different mentality. Guy ran the triple option for years, and it was just line them up and we're going to bang and we're going to bring it. And that was the mentality that.
That's because he had a whole bunch of guys like you without any athletic ability who's like very simple. Keep it simple.
Listen to this
Lift
guy.
weights. Keep simple.
And it was, right?
No,
and
for sure.
And it was simple. And because he knew, part of it, like he was smart and knew the type of kids he had. He had blue-collar kids.
Sure,
right?
absolutely.
The guys that were going to come in and they were going to work their asses off and they are going to put out 100% for you no matter what you tell them to do.
Yeah.
I mean, how many guys that played for the old man would, probably 9 out of 10, he would line you up 5 feet from a brick wall and go, you're going to run through that today.
Yeah,
And he would, and you would do it.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was it. And it was a completely different type of mentality as from a coaching perspective and with the kids that he was dealing with at that
I
time.
knew this conversation would turn into Coach I at some point.
Oh, yeah.
But like talking about the mindset, the one story, only because I can't not share the story. The one that I remember about him the most, right, is when we coach was dealing with injuries, right?
Oh, yeah.
I coached on teams where
I've told Rachel this story. Go ahead.
I've coached teams where concussions are contagious. I've coached teams where there's like one injury a season that everybody gets, right? We never
that
got
happened
injured.
every season,
every
though.
season, right?
Every season.
And we played on a team where you never got injured, right? You're either hurt or you're injured, and nobody was bold enough to say they got injured, right? Because then it's like, I'm done with you, right? So coach gave everything required ice and tape. Everything can be solved with ice and tape, right? You've heard this one before. Yeah. Ice and tape. Coach, my arm's saying ice and tape it. Okay, so we're walking back in from double days. Literally, he was so conditioned to respond with ice and tape that one of the juniors or seniors is walking in. He's got a ripped jersey. He's like, Coach, my jersey's ripped. He looks at him and goes, ice it and tape it. And I think he actually did because that's what he was told to do by Coach I. So, but it's like, yeah, we don't really treat injuries here. Like, that's for another team. Like,
well, that was it. Dude, the same thing. The first time I got a boo-boo was my freshman year. spring ball.
Did you just say?
Oh yeah,
Boo-boo.
because it wasn't. You weren't hurt. You weren't injured.
Yeah.
Coach I was going to tell you got a boo boo, right? Like suck it up. We're running. I was a tight end, and we're running slant. I still remember we're running slant routes, right? And ball gets thrown behind me. I try and reach back and grab the ball, and it snaps my pinky. My pinky's sticking this. I mean, literally, it's sticking like opposite direction. It's taking a right turn, right?
Yeah.
So I look at it. I'm like, oh shit! Like, what do I do? So I go over to my Coach Johansson. Coach is like, ooh, you probably want to go see the old man. So he sends me over to Coach I.
I got back to tell you what he said.
Coach I looks at it and goes, get some ice. You're fine. You probably sprained it.
Sprained it. So
by the end of practice, I've got ice on it. By the end of practice, this thing is purple. It's making a right turn, and it's probably twice the size of my thumb. It's the only time he looks at it, and he goes, you might want to get that checked.
Yeah. He didn't even give you the tape it. He just said ice it. He's like, that's not even close to needing tape. Just put some ice on it.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's, yeah. And that's, thank goodness we don't coach and play and live in those times anymore, right? That's a different thing, but it's they're still weeding out that mentality because guys like you and I are of high school coaching age, even though we don't do it, right? Mm-hmm. We all coach what we know. And that's the biggest thing I think when we were coming up too was there wasn't a lot of like coaches education stuff. We weren't talking about these things. So Darrell and I went out and we coached like we had been coached. Well, this is 20 years later, right? It's even 5 years later. It's just a different time. We're way smarter. We know that's not the way to do it, right? We know that's how you chase kids out of the game. We're much more aware about health and safety. So that's the piece that, like, in my job now, we try really hard to get in front of, right? And talk to coaches about, like, look, you only know what you know, so nobody's faulting you, right? That you're doing things the way you were coached. But understand, 20-year gap, right, in what you learned and what the community has learned, right? So let's get you up to speed. Let's refocus, that type of stuff. But it's hard, man, because football's a tough game. And we talk about health and safety. We talk about all these other things. You're not going to take the contact out of contact football, right? But we need to be smarter about how we address it, how we communicate with doctors, parents, players. Return to play protocols are huge, right? I always tell, so I was a master trainer for USA Football, and we talk about concussions. And the one I always open with is like when I played smelling salts cured concussions, right? Smelling salts cured concussions. How many fingers is always 2, right? And what day is it? It's game day. That's it, right? And if you can knock those 3 out, it's always the same. Those are always the 3 correct answers. You're going back in the game, right? So we have to understand that, like, yes, we recognize that's where we came from. Now I need you to understand that's not where we're at. I need you to understand that that's not what we're doing anymore. But it's hard, right? Because people talk about those times in retrospect, very romantic. Like you and I, like your broken finger's like a great story. At the time, you were probably scared to death. Right?
Oh my God!
That your finger was going to fall off, right? And now it's like a fun story, but in the moment, it's not. It's traumatizing, right? So we have to figure that piece out. I don't need my kids to have those stories, you know?
And that's just it. And I know you had a few concussions in your day, and so did I. And thinking back to that time, like, oh, I just got my bell rung.
Sure,
I just got my bell rung. But when I can look back and say that I honestly can't remember the second half of my last high school football game, there's a problem there.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
There's a big problem there. Then that's not a joke. Like, I do not remember the second half of my last game, and it was, it was just, oh yeah, you got your bell rung. No.
Yeah.
And then my head hurt for a week. Like, there's there's something that off there.
Well, and the one thing that I learned in looking back at my own path with concussions was once you get your first, you're more susceptible to the second, third, fourth, fifth, especially when you don't take time off in between. And I think my first one was on a Saturday, and I practiced Monday because I wasn't dizzy anymore, and that's just kind of what you did.
Right.
But then I also had them throughout at a much higher clip than I think other people would have had I had taken the time to let my brain heal, do all those things right. And that's ultimately what took me out of the game. Now, I was going to get stopped by athletic ability and talent at some point, but I played in college, right? I transferred out of Cabrillo in junior college, and ultimately it was getting hit in the head was too much. I didn't have the skull for it anymore because I'd just done it too many times. And every time we'd go pass pro with the inside linebackers and we'd have any sort of like light or intermediate contact, I'd be dizzy. And I kept that to myself for such a long time because I just figured everybody went through that. Then comes in Steve Young, those types of things, and guys are leaving professional football because of these, and everybody's looking at it now, right? That's when I understood. I was like, you know what? I think I'm following the same path, and it's never going to get better for me. I'm not going to keep progressing, go hitting bigger and bigger guys, and myself getting bigger and bigger. And then all of a sudden concussions aren't going to be a problem. So Yeah, that's a real big thing where it's like, man, that's the one we really got to make sure we transition out of is how we handle head injury and trauma and the communication and return to play. Because again, you don't take care of it the first time. There's going to be a second, there's going to be a third, fourth, and they're going to get worse. So, well,
and what you guys are doing too, like with coaches' education, is huge, right? Because for a long time, what was coaches' education? It was some, huge high school coaches football clinic.
Right.
That would have, your pro coaches, college coaches come in, and they present on offense and defense.
Correct.
Right? And now, like what I've seen the transition, at least like with what you guys are doing and what I really appreciate is you're talking about injuries. You're talking about player development. You're talking about what is best for the kids, right? It's not just about like, here's your X's and O's and like, let's get better and let's win games. It's okay, how can I make this kid progress, not just as an athlete, but as a person and help them along the way and help these coaches understand what these kids are going through too.
Totally. And the biggest kind of eye-opener I had working within a pro sports team was when we hosted a coaching clinic like that and we had our professional position coordinators, all these coaches come out and talk to high school coaches, and they're telling you the same things that you should be teaching in high school is what they're doing with the pros today. Like everybody thinks like you're going to get some secret code, right? All of a sudden like, oh, well, if you hold your head sideways by a degree, you're going to, no, it's not that. It's we drill fundamentals. We're technically sound. We don't take plays off. Like, oh man, I'm sure I heard my high school coach say that, right?
On that note, when you and I, so this is prior to you, it was prior to you getting hired full-time with the 49ers. Mm-hmm. We were doing the 3-day camps. And then I think it was training camp that year. We came out, and it was just to kind of walk the kids around training camp, right? And you had a group of kids, and you walked them around. They got to watch different drills. And that was, I believe, when we were still coaching high school football or right after. And I remember you and I looking at each other and saying, okay, what they are doing here at this level is exactly, like for you were coaching linebackers and calling our defense. It's exactly what I'm doing with our linebackers during everyday drills. Now, the progression down throughout practice, it's going to get more intense and there's going to be more involved. But they are doing those exact same things, but they're just doing them really well.
They're doing them super fast. And the difference is, honestly, it's high school kids don't have 8 hours a day to commit to the classroom just learning football, right? That's the difference. So the end of practice at the pros, from the stuff that I've watched, is you go through all your fundamentals, but now you're putting a game plan. And it looks more dynamic because they're scouting all this and the playbooks, 3 feet tall and all that stuff. But the physical piece of it, it doesn't change, right?
It's the same game.
Yeah, it's the same game. And that's what I love our coaches, even throughout the years, they hammer that fact home. It's like, look, it's the same game. You got to take care of this, that, and the other. It's not scheme. Don't over scheme. We try not to over scheme. Our defense still tries to simplify, right? You'll hear that a lot of time, even in the press and all that stuff is like, we got a new guy in. We try to simplify the scheme. Some stuff's too complicated and you see defenses struggle. It's like, no, it's just, if we can all play at 100 miles an hour, we're going to be a lot better, right? Because our technique's going to be good, right? All the X's and O's piece. Yeah, sure. It's a want to, not a have to a lot of times. So, but it's good. It's good that message gets conveyed because I think, as we said, as a high school coach, you're trying to like download all this stuff into kids. Like I played in college. Like I want to give you all of that right now. And it's like, I put my butt pad on the wrong way, coach. Like, cool. Let's start somewhere else then, right? You're not understanding the route tree, right? Or RPO or anything like that. So,
right.
It's a good balance to strike.
Yeah. Cool. So we've talked a lot about like your job, what you do, kind of some of the progressions, how you guys are helping community, whatever. So like I said, you've been working with the Niners for a while now. So what's your favorite part about your job?
My favorite, wow, there's just one. Mine's doing something in the community, right?
Okay.
That's what fills my tank is feeling like the work we do makes a difference.
Okay.
Now, the fact that it's positioned within the 49ers is probably the second best part of my day, right? Like I grew up a Niner fan. I don't ever hide that. So the hardest thing for me was when I started was like keeping the fandom down, right? So I played fullback. We talked about that.
Oh, here we go.
So the best fullback in the game.
I know who we're talking about.
Write this down, kids. The best fullback in the game is Tom Rathman, okay? Number 44 for the 49ers. He led the team in reception. I won't get into it. He also never went to a Pro Bowl because there was no fullback category for the Pro Bowl, which is a travesty.
Host.
I'll link the petition to get him in the Hall of Fame at the end of this broadcast. But so Tom Rathman at the time, and I always idolized him. My dad told me to. He's like, you need to watch this guy because the best play never was a run play that I saw. It was an interception that I don't remember if it was Steve or Joe threw against Cincinnati Bengals, and he chased down the DB and just blasted him on the sideline. He was like, "That's how you play football. It's the relentless pursuit of the ball, and it's the win, it's the team, it's the effort." I was like, "Man, that's really great." So my first day, remember, so I started in 2009. My first day in the building, we're going around. My dad sent me a text. He's like, "You leave Tom Rathman alone if you see him." I was like, "Dad, I don't know. This might be my only day here because I'm gonna have to give him a bear hug." So I see Tom Rathman. I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm kind of freaking out. But I walked in the building with him, right, for years, and that's still cool to me, right? It's still cool to me to see Tom Rathman. The other day on my first one, so you can write this one down too. We're going around doing the tour. Who's the head coach in 2009? Mike Singletary.
Yeah.
We're walking through the building. He's like, my boss is like, we're going to take you in. This is where the head coach is. Oh, you can go in and see the reception. So I turn the corner, right? Make a lefty. Sing's coming out.
Singletary.
Right? Doesn't see me. He's got his head down. Bang. I bump into him. Guess who steps back? Mike Singletary. So the way I tell the story to my dad is I get on the phone. I'm like, "Dad, I just B-gapped Mike Singletary back about 4 feet." Right? Now, if you ask Coach Singletary today, he'd be like, "I don't even know who that guy is." But to me, it's like what's going to go on my headstone is like, he knocked back Mike Singletary. But that's it, right? It's being close to the game. It's. I have a passion for football. I like constantly learning. I get to do stuff inside the building that's not in my job title. I worked with our defensive line coach for years. I used to stay late on Tuesdays and do formation hit charts for the team. So what he would do is take all the tendencies and plays from the other team, we'd go through film, I'd catalog it, and then draw up stuff that he would then synthesize into what a game plan was. But I'd stay there on Tuesday nights till 2 a.m, just on my own because I wanted to learn that stuff. I used to go to the combine, right? I used to help at the combine. I used to take players from the train station to different interviews. There's all the things that go along with it, but just to learn. I sat in there, I clocked 40s, right? That's just something that I have a passion to do and learn and watch. And I sat next to our old strength and conditioning coach for the bench press, right? Which is interesting because the bench press is pretty straightforward, you'd think, right? And a lot of teams kind of treat it that way. What he does is he sits next to the pathway where they come up and he starts to body type them, first of all, because they're in underpants basically, right? Mm-hmm. He'd body type them. And then he'd put them into different categories. And he had this whole system. He'd start evaluating them as soon as they walked out the door. It didn't matter how many reps they put up. That was probably like third on the list. How they came in, what their body type was, an estimated body fat, like where their strengths and deficiencies were. Like he would look at all that stuff. And he was telling me as he's doing it. So it's like, that's just cool to do, man. Yeah. If you love football, like why not? Or you like strength training or anything, right? Sports in general. It's just interesting.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. I mean, on a super micro level, I can just remember being at the 3-day camps and having the opportunity to watch some of the guys work out, like being involved in strength training, health and fitness, and being able to see some of the stuff that they were doing with the players, away from the kids and watching those guys work and watching the way the strength coaches work is absolutely amazing just on that scale of being able to see it, and for you being in it firsthand. And that's super cool.
No, it's, And again, I love that every day. That's one thing that's never gone away from me, right? I just like the game. I like to learn. I like to be close to it. My favorite part during training camp is just walking out and being able to stand on the sidelines and watch training camp, right? It's not in my job description. I'm usually doing something else in between, but God, I get the opportunity to sit out there and watch camp, right? That's cool, man. I mean, it never goes away, and it changes, right? It's not as I don't get nervous when I see the Tom Rathmans in the building like I did on my first day, but I'm still fired up about it. You know what I mean? I love sitting down and talking ball, and I'll have lunch with those guys, and we'll talk ball, right? That's how I know he never went to a Pro Bowl. I was asking, none. I was like, oh my gosh, I never knew that, right? And that's a lunchtime conversation that you don't get anywhere else. So,
right.
Yeah.
I think one of the few times I've almost seen Jared cry. So,
I've cried since the 80s, by the way.
Yeah. Well, being somebody who collected sports cards as a kid, right? Growing up, I had some sports card memorabilia, and I knew that Jared's favorite player is Tom Rathman. Well, I was lucky enough to get a 8x11 picture autographed by Tom Rathman. So I said, I'm going to give this to Jared. Almost broke him down, dude. So I cannot imagine what that first day was like where
it's the centerpiece of the shrine in my garage. I still have it. I didn't change the frame.
I know. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. But phenomenal. I cannot imagine the first day Jared met Tom Rathman and how you didn't pee your pants.
Yeah.
Like no joke. Like this is
there's a lot.
So my Jim Wendler, that's Jared's Tom Rathman.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, just everybody's got it. It's hard. And that's super cool, right? That's like,
It's amazing.
fires me up, dude.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. Good dude. Great teacher. And he was coaching running backs. He was coaching Frank Gore at the time, in a whole stable of amazing running backs. So just watching him coach too, because at that point I was still kind of coaching or thinking I was going to coach at some level. So I was very focused kind of on watching his technique and that stuff. And just, we talked about the combine too. So before the guys go into their interviews, their scheduled interviews, they wait outside. They're all hotel rooms, right, in the lower floor, and they move guys around. Guys would come early, and coaches who were coming in early would bump into him. So just watching him like evaluate a running back before, coach gets his hands on him, has that type of thing. Like, it's intense, man. And it's just cool to watch. Like, he's all football, and all these coaches they are so football, right? It's like, man, that's a hard gig to just live, breathe, die football, sleep at your desk. But
Well, for a long time, that was the goal, right?
that was the goal, for sure.
I know you and I both talked about it at a younger age. Like, this is what I want to do.
Absolutely.
And it's, then you start to see it more and more, and like what it actually is, and it's like, holy crap, man!
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, and I love the game, but I think for me too, I have 3 kids. Like, I'm too far into my life and career to now make my family accustomed to that lifestyle, right? Like, we could do the high school football thing and all the, Friday nights are off and Saturdays are film and all this other piece, but dad's not coming home from, July to January for more than 8 hours. Like, that's tough. And it's not everybody does that, and they're trending away from that. Coaches are being very intentional about sending their teams home and stuff, but that's what it was, right? And it's still very intense. So, yeah, I couldn't do all that. I'd much rather coach T-ball at this point in my life. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's cool. Rach, you got any more questions for Jared today?
No, I don't have any questions. It's just like watching you guys talk. Cause I know a lot about how much you love coaching and football, how it's meant to you. And it's nice to see, because I feel like I've met you so many times from all the stories and everything. So it's just really cool to like see how passionate you are.
I feel the same. You're the podcast.
Yeah.
All the podcasts.
Yep. Podcast.
And the Instagram posts.
Indeed.
Yeah.
It's just really cool to see. Like, I see both of you when you guys are talking, and you'll be able to see it on this, like how excited your faces just get when you're talking. So it's just super cool. And like how it's all about like the kids and the education, which I didn't even know anything. It's just really cool to see. So,
well, when like I said, Jared and I are best friends, right? And we coach football for a long time together. And I think what kept me coaching and kept me as involved and intense in the game was Jared, right? Is having that friend there to share that with, somebody that it's just like when you're on the field, right? Like, you have a teammate that you step on the field with that has your back 100% of the time. It's the same thing with somebody that you're coaching with, right? Is like, you have that, it's that rapport, it's that relationship with that person, and when somebody else is putting in 100%, it's yeah. And Jared and I did that for a long time together.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. It's like your guys' rapport. Like, I see that when you guys are interacting and the way you're coaching and those types of things. Like, I'm a team sport guy. You played soccer, right? Mm-hmm. You played football. I am not a wrestler. I am not a fencer. I'm not a tennis player. That doesn't drive me, right? It's always team. And that's, you asked me, one of the things I love about my job too, is that I get to work on a team. Like, my list of what I love starts there. It says, I want to do something that makes a difference. I want to work on a team, and I want to get my feet in the grass, right? I want to be outside at some point doing something. Those are like my 3 have to haves. But that's because of the team mentality, right? It's like I have to have those people around me. So to bat it back and forth, like, to make me be better, I need other people to want me to be better or need me to be better for them, right? And that always translates. So it's like the dynamic is cool, obviously, but I see it with you guys and just how everybody who's a coach is, right?
Yeah.
If you're coaching anything, you gotta be a part of a team. You have to, and you have to love that stuff. So the stuff you guys are doing here too, your old classes, this is sports. You guys are lifting and you're working out, but let's be honest, there's a team mentality around all of this, right?
For sure.
Your coaches, not trainers.
Well, and that's why I think that's why we build such a big rapport with our members here at the gym, right? And even like with the online stuff, because it's a community, it's part of a team, and it's the buy-in aspect of it, just like team sports.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, listen, thank you guys for having me. This is fun.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can do it again.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, dude.
Truly I do.
No, it was awesome.
It's if you guys have any questions for us, or you guys want to reach out to Jared, is there a way people can get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get a hold of me direct, you can have my email. It's jared@49ers.com. You can follow me on social media. That's a good place to hit me up too. I'm at Jared Muela at Twitter and Instagram, so I'm easy to find. I don't put out a lot of content, but I do respond. Don't try me on LinkedIn. God, someone's always trying to sell me something on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I don't mess with it.
I want to accept it, but then it's like, hey, I have this new product. I'm like, no, I appreciate the hustle, but like, that's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, stay off my LinkedIn.
Hello, I see you on gym.
Yeah.
I make you sell supplements.
Yeah,
No, please.
Well, the other one I love too. We're so off topic. But the
Yeah,
other
it's
one
okay.
the other one I love too is like looking to make some money in your extra time. Like we're looking for folks just like you. Like no, you're not. You know nothing about that. You just sent this blind. Like you want to make $100 a day making phone calls from home? Like, yes, I
like
do.
getting hit
The
up on
Marines
Instagram.
sent me something.
The
on
Marines?
LinkedIn. Yeah,
The Marines.
Like you guys don't.
Please no. Please no.
No, it's
You
like
don't know what you're getting.
there's a lot of spam in that thing.
So, like I say, you guys got any questions for Jared, reach out to him. If you have any questions for us, castironworkouts@gmail.com. Don't forget, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give us a review. Reviews help us a ton, either on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, or on SoundCloud.
Unless they're negative, don't give any reviews, especially if it has to do with me or this episode.
Indeed.
Check out our Twitter then if you're gonna
Yeah.
Shut up. I hate you guys so much. So, I'll give you the story. So,
here we
it was
go.
2 episodes ago. I've never had a Twitter. And I was like, follow us.
tweeting now, huh?
I was like,
With
follow us on.
Anchorman.
Dude, I did. I went straight up. Will Ferrell, Anchorman, Ron Burgundy. I was like, yeah, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And I was like, and right as I said it, like, I was like, why the hell
We
did
were
I
all
just
looking
say-
at him like, all right, dude, we got a Twitter.
I'm like, man, Joe Rogan says it. I can say it.
Also,
So then you had to
Make
create a
a
Twitter
Twitter.
to back it up?
No.
Oh, come on, coach.
No. People are out there looking.
They
for
are.
it.
There's
Guaranteed.
thousands of people searching Darrell Letts on Twitter and they get nothing.
That's why the negative comments go there.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
I like-
yeah.
oh,
If you have a
gotcha,
negative
gotcha.
comment, it goes to our Twitter account.
Gotcha, that makes
Please,
sense.
please find that. Please find that.
Oh.
2 weeks for $2.
Yeah, 2 weeks for $2. Sign up. castironworkouts.com. We're offering a special.
What do I get with my 2 weeks, Darrell?
For you? We'll talk about that off air.
jeez.
Okay, that's a special
I'm
deal.
leaving.
Bro, I
It's a
can't
special
work out.
deal.
I can't work out with you. It's
Why
too
not?
much.
But I miss you.
Yeah. No, I miss you too. I'd rather be social though. Your workouts seem intense.
Oh man. All right, so I think that's all I got. Mikey, you got anything else to add?
I think we're good.
Producer?
Covered it.
No. Rachel, you got anything? You hungry?
I'm hungry.
Yeah, I can tell. All right, guys. Well, thanks again for joining us today. Jared, thank you again for coming on, buddy.
Got it.
And
Thanks,
we'll see you guys soon.
Nope, have to be.